Hello, this is the RPG Crawler, and welcome to another Indie Game Friday, where each week I take a look at an independent role-playing game. This time I'm going to go ahead and take a look at one that's been out for quite some time, but which I've finally been able to get some sit-down time with. Ninth Dawn, now known as Ninth Dawn Classic, was released way back in January 2012 by Valorware, and is apparently available on both Steam and mobile platforms. While a straightforward game, Ninth Dawn is not the sort of simplified RPG that I've been taking a look at so often lately. It uses tile-based graphics and a free-roaming movement and attack method that place it well within the action RPG camp, while still maintaining level-based advancement with full skills and inventory management suited for inclusion into the realm of the full RPG. In terms of plot, you begin in a small hut near the town of Agaria, upon an island continent. You are then immediately offered various quests that ease you into the overall adventure and allow you to learn the systems of the game. As for those systems, character creation starts with a selection of one of four classes: the knight, who is skilled in swords and shields; the archer, who is skilled with bows and daggers; the mage, who uses magic and magic staves; and the justablander, who uses magic and swords. You can name your character, of course, and then you enter the game. Once in the game, you are given a few stats to distribute amongst your ability scores, as well as some starting gear to equip and use. There are 5 ability scores: Strength, which affects melee damage; Dexterity, that affects ranged attacks and movement rate; Constitution, that affects health; Intelligence, that affects spell potency; and Wisdom, that affects mana. You may assign your starting ability points to these stats, and as you level up, you are given more to distribute whenever you do. The game also uses a skill system with 6 weapon skills, 1 magic skill, a shield skill, a trap skill, and a magic staff skill. Skills can improve through use, although most things have a minimum skill to be able to use at all. Certain higher-end weapons, for instance, can only be equipped once you raise your skill high enough to use them, so you have to practice on your lower-end weapons. During the game, you may place spells and items in a hotbar on the bottom of the screen, which may be used at the click of a mouse. You do have 3 bars above in the right-hand corner: a health bar that decreases as you take damage, a mana bar that goes down as you use spells, and a stamina bar that goes down as you use certain attacks. There's also an experience bar that goes up as you kill enemies and accomplish quests. Once you get a certain amount of experience, you level up, which grants you additional stat points to spend, as I mentioned above. In the game, you move about the world, which is represented by contiguous maps made of discrete terrain tiles. Dungeons are on their own maps and are accessible via entries, ladders, caves, wells, and so forth. There are containers that you can interact with, which allow you to loot them, and standing near an interactable object will allow you to use it, although most of the time that just seems to be flipping switches. Doors are usually opened automatically unless they require a key. It should be noted that the game does use a line-of-sight system, so areas of the map will be blacked out depending on whether your character can actually see them or not. To speak with NPCs, you need to be close to them and then use the interaction button or icon. This allows you to proceed through a series of set dialogue boxes, which may grant or complete quests or open shopping menus if they're a merchant. In terms of attacking and dealing with enemies will tend to charge you directly. You may move about to avoid them, and you may initiate attacks with your weapons in any direction. The attack's range is limited based on your weapon, and how fast you can initiate attacks is based on the weapon's speed. Usually the best option is to sort of kite enemies around and attack them in your wake, although this is not always possible in cramped corridors. Interestingly enough, if your attack intercepts multiple enemies, it will damage all of them. So if there's a stack of enemies near where you're swinging your sword, you can kill a few of them in a single swing. Enemies can drop money or other treasure, but it really just boils down to equipable items and sellable materials. Each character may equip a certain number of items, especially parts of armor, weapons, and perhaps a few accessories. Armor and weapons are divided up by what class can actually use them, and as mentioned before, utilizing certain weapons will require a certain level of basic skill. Much of the game consists of exploring caves and wilderness area to accomplish quests. The quests themselves start out fairly linear, but the world is well designed enough that exploration is actually quite a bit of a pleasure regardless, and there are a few side quests sprinkled here and there, so the relative simplicity of the game loop is pretty bearable. There is the occasional switch puzzle or similar challenge as well to break things up. Graphically, the game uses barely animated sprites and tiles that would have been suited for a game back in the 90s. The interface is a bit clunky, as are the controls, to the point where the Steam version is actually even labeled the Clunky Control Edition, but honestly I didn't find them to be too bad. A lot of the interface issues arise from the fact that this was released on mobile as well, and as such, everything has a mobile interface that can accomplish things with a touch of a mouse or touchpad screen. The music is actually pretty good and is just soothingly mellow enough to remain in the background without being overly distracting. All in all, for the relatively slow price point, it's a nice little hack and slasher with a relatively deep story and development system considering its humble components. It should be noted that there is a sequel that was released in 2016, which I'll be covering pretty soon. This is one of those that my viewers who prefer their games on the go can check out on mobile if they haven't already, and you might occasionally find it on sale on Steam, if the already tiny price point isn't low enough for you. And on that note, I'm going to leave it at that. I'll put the link to the Steam page in the description below as always. This has been the RPG Crawler with Indie Game Friday 9th Dawn Classic. If you like what you've seen, remember to leave a like, comment if you've got any feedback, and subscribe for more RPG content both tabletop and computer. I'd like to thank my patrons who have been supporting this channel all this while, and if you feel like joining them, I do have a Patreon at patreon.com/rpgcrawler that goes towards supporting the various reviews I go on this channel. Until next time, take care and goodbye.